missiles, gunfire, homes reduced to rubble, explosions, and death. This has become a reality for many who suffer from the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. Welcome, people of the earth. I'm your host, Mustafa Khamis, and this is episode 11 of Controversial Chats, where the most controversial global issues are discussed. Here at Controversial Chats, we believe the land located east of the Mediterranean Sea should not belong to Palestine nor Israel. Instead, we believe the current Israeli and Palestinian citizens should live under one country that is regulated by one fair and equal sovereignty, because this will ensure safety to the Palestinian and Israeli civilians, remove unconscious bias and prejudice from both sides, and will reach the demands of many Palestinian and Israeli citizens. To begin with, the Palestine-Israel conflict has threatened the safety of its citizens in each country, all of which has resulted in many civilian injuries and deaths over the years. During the Second Intifada, following terrorist attacks resulting in government reaction, Fox states the fighting killed approximately 3,200 Palestinians and 1,100 Israelis. Two UN agencies have separately estimated that 70+% of the fatalities are civilian. It is evident that the conflict between both governments threatens the safety of its citizens, undoubtedly supported by the UN agencies, as they state that 70+% of the fatalities in the war are civilian. The death of 3,200 Palestinians and 1,100 Israelis further demonstrates the brutal threat to civilian safety within both countries. However, the violence and death of innocent civilians does not need to continue. If a fair and equal one-state solution is implemented, then the war and violence will terminate. In order for this to work, however, citizens need to understand the eye for an eye until everyone is blind ideology, and how it is detrimental to the safety and livelihood of their community. By moving forward, as hard as it may be, and understanding that the never-ending cycle would only bring more harm, then the safety for civilians living in Palestine and Israel is a possibility. In addition to protecting civilian safety, merging Palestine and Israel into a fair and equal country will reduce unconscious bias and prejudice from both sides of the conflict. The fear of prejudice and unconscious bias due to the Palestinian and Israeli conflict is highlighted by Khalid, who says,
I don't think I'm afraid of the people on the other side. I think I'm afraid of the gap and sort of side taking all of the responsibility for what is happening, or this side taking all of the responsibility for what is happening.
Khalid explains how the gap between the people of both Palestine and Israel has caused prejudice and unconscious bias to worsen. This includes blaming the opposing side as the root of all the person's problems, and this is due to prejudice. Prejudice assumptions influence violence and hatred between each group, all of which worsen the Palestine-Israel conflict. By merging both countries, the citizens of each group will be able to communicate humanely and recognize their assumptions as false. Although it may be difficult for those who have suffered traumatic experiences by their so-called enemy, nothing comes easy, and by moving forward, you are preventing others from suffering similar traumatic experiences. Lastly, if the equal and single-state solution is enforced, then many Palestinian and Israeli people's demands will be met. A Jubilee Middle Ground video included 6 interviewees, 3 Palestinian citizens and 3 Israeli citizens, all of whom agreed in the video when Bara, a Palestinian citizen, said,
"It's going to be better for us to live all of us together, which is no state like Palestinian, no state like Israeli, only together and having..."
Following Bara's point, everybody agreed. However, the Israeli interviewees believe this new state should be governed under Israeli sovereignty. This is why proposing a fair and equal sovereignty for both Palestinians and Israelis is the best solution. Although many have suffered traumatic experiences during the Palestine-Israel conflict, such as Arab from the Jubilee video, who has seen his 10-year-old sister murdered in front of him, and Ran, also from the Jubilee video, who carries a list of 27 of his close friends and relatives who passed away in the conflict. Both believe a single-state solution would be the best choice for peace and to possibly bring an end to the nearly 100-year-old issue. Ensuring safety to civilians, removing prejudice and unconscious bias, and reaching the civilians' demands are all valid reasons as to why a fair and equal single state would likely be the best solution for Palestine and Israel. Although as to how the single state solution could be performed is a discussion for another video. War has been prominent between both Palestine and Israel for decades, however not much has been done in hopes for a better future in this region. If an equal one-state solution is not put in effect, how much longer will it take? How many more deaths and stories will we need to hear until change is finally decided for the state of these people? Thank you for tuning in to Controversial Chats. Subscribe to the podcast, and I'll see you all next Monday.